a button you can push that opens up a little kind of a hidden little compartment in the dash. It's like an extra little glove compartment, and you can put whatever you want of your treasures that you don't want anybody getting, and then you just close it, and there's nobody, will see it. So if you happen to have some kind of something that you don't want anybody to get, that's kind of nice. It's really kind of cool. Got a nice.
If you're a fan of minimalist design, the interior is very nice. It's very simple. There's not a lot of buttons. There's not a lot of confusion on what to do or how to do it. Everything is right where you need it, and that's about it.
Rear view camera, the whole bit. I mean, it had the rear view mirror camera, which I really like. Have wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, which some of the vehicles are doing without. 19-inch wheels and things like that. Had a lot of neat things. The base price on this was $53,690, and it had a bunch of extras that were goofy, but a nice vehicle. I really enjoyed it, and I drove it all around, and it really held a charge very, very well. I mean, I drove it all around town and put 50, 60 miles on it and only used 10% the charge. So I was very happy with that. And gosh, I would buy this in a heartbeat. I mean, this is one of the nicest because it was so roomy. Second seat, the back seats had plenty of room in them. Even you could sit it back there. I could sit back there with plenty of room. So, Jeremy, I was very happy with that.
One of the things I really like that makes a car even feel roomy is the panoramic sunroof. It gives because the back people get the light above them, and you're not so squished in with the roof of the car. That's an option in this Aria, which is really cool as well.
It's got a really good looking dash. It's got a really neat instrument cluster that kind of goes most of the way across the car. It's all one piece. So if you want two different screens, it doesn't have that, but it does have a knob for volume and everything else, and an on-off button for the audio system. So they give me my knob, my button and my knob that I wanted. So that made me feel better.
And then the AC buttons that go across the dash are kind of like hidden if they're not illuminated, which is kind of cool. And they're not, they don't look like traditional push buttons, which is really nice and sleek design on the dash.
Yeah. It's a good SUV. It's a very nice. They have the dual motor version it's a little bit faster, and it does have different drive modes. It's got and it's got a eco mode, and it's got a sport mode and a normal mode, and so there's all these different ways depending on how sporty or eco you feel that day. So it's very, very nice. And if you have a chance to go drive one, you'll like it. But it sits up a little bit higher than some vehicles, and so it's more of an SUV, CUV than it is a car. And I've got it on the freeway, and I was like, man, this thing runs good. And I looked down, I'm doing close to 100, and I was like, oops. And I slowed down, and I realized it didn't destroy my range, and so that was nice. But it, basically 238 horsepower in a small vehicle like that, it was really nice. And I enjoyed the hell out of it. It's really good. So I think you'll probably like it too. Like I said, they make it in several different versions. It's kind of like, Burger King, have it your way. I mean, any way you want it, you'll have it.
It's a very futuristic design too from the outside. It's got very small headlights and those DRLs.
Got the cool looking Nissan. You can tell it's a Nissan by looking at the front of it. So and the rear, but people like I had 4 or 5 people stop me and go, wow, this is really good looking car. And I went, it's so quiet, and it's makes the audio system have to work a lot less. So you can crank it up and it'll still rattle the windows though. You'll enjoy it. I mean, you'd love it. Be a perfect LA car.
Yeah, it looks like a good commuter car. It's got a sweet little spoiler on the back, which I'm always a fan of. It kind of reminds me like, a little bit smaller than the Tesla Model Y.
Yeah, that's it. And it looks good. I think it looks better than Model Y, that's for sure. But let's check it out. The Nissan, go to your Nissan dealer, check out the Aria. You can also check out the new Leaf they turned over a new Leaf. So there you go. So, well, hopefully not literally, but it is a very nice car. So, all right, today on the if you want to come back for the podcast, we've got some things we're going to talk about trucks, owning a truck and to use it for towing or hauling and things like that. I'd like to find out from people how, if you bought a truck, Do you use it like I do for just a regular vehicle? Do you use it for, so here in Texas, they use trucks for your family vehicle. You may use it for towing or hauling occasionally, but most people will buy them for their family vehicles. They want to sit up high and they want to, win it if they're in an accident. So that's why a lot of people own trucks here. That's just a way of life. And it's nice to be able to throw stuff in the back. So that's neat. I'd like to find out how you use your truck or your SUV. Do you use your SUV for throwing stuff in or not? So that's something we like to ask you. So if you have a chance, go to our Facebook page, Let's Talk Wheels, and tell us, send us a note.
Welcome to Calvin's Barbershop.
You all got to see this.
I don't even want to know what you're looking at on that phone.
Well, you should. I was learning about the dangers of high blood pressure and that we need to get ours checked regularly. High blood pressure can increase the risk of heart attack or stroke, but this text program can help keep it at a healthy range. Just text Barbershop to 97779 to sign up.
I'll get right on it as soon as I'm done with this baby panda video.
Text Barbershop to 97779. A message from the American Heart Association and the Ad Council.
Sherman Gillums Jr., Paralyzed Veterans of America.
For more than 70 years, Paralyzed Veterans of America has helped hundreds of thousands of veterans get all the benefits they have earned.
Al Kovac Jr., Paralyzed Veterans of America.
We provide one-on-one support tailored to your individual needs, including healthcare advocacy, benefit support, and career assistance.
For more information, call 1-800-424-8200 or visit pva.org. A public service of Paralyzed Veterans of America.
This is Matt Lipsack, the voice of the Youngstown Phantoms, and your home for Phantoms hockey is Western Reserve Radio.
You're going on a trip, but where are you going to stay? How much will it cost? Well, it'll cost less by booking on besthotelrates.com. BestHotelRates.com works with all the top hotels in the country while delivering you great hotel and room choices for the best prices. Why wait? Go to BestHotelRates.com, enter your email address, and start shopping for your next hotel room. BestHotelRates.com, it's in the name. BestHotelRates.com.
This radio commercial was made to convince you to stop speeding. We can't use siren sound effects on the radio, so we'll use other equally jarring sound effects to get your attention. Like telling you that whether you drive a little over the speed limit or a lot, you can crash just the same. You could hurt yourself or worse, others.
I'm at the scene of the collision.
And the damage you cause will be beyond repair. See, we didn't have to use crash or siren sounds after all. Speeding catches up with you. Brought to you by NHTSA.
First Name Sports with Greg Frank.
We bring on the storied manager now, Tim Leland. You look at some of the exciting players, Ronald Acuna Jr., now Ellie De La Cruz with what he's been doing with the Reds. There are a lot of exciting players, and I feel like some of these rule changes, we're seeing more balls in play. The stolen base is back. The game is overall a faster game. I think the game's in a pretty good spot. What do you think?
I agree with you 100%. I don't think there's any question about it. We have some great young superstars coming up. Young people like stars, young people like action. The commissioner's created action with the pitch clock and a couple other rule changes. I think he's done a great job, and I think it's good for the game. Young people want action. They don't want to sit there and be bored, and that's what we got to do to attract our young fan and to keep our young fan coming out to the game and keeping the interest in the game, because a few years back, we weren't getting the young fan out. The young kids were doing other stuff, and now I think we're starting to bring them back a little bit.
First Name Sports, weekday afternoons from 2 to 4 Eastern.
The diehards.
There's a lot that think they're the king, you know what.
And those shows out there are awful.
But I've also been very good at grooming co-hosts to be like really national spectacular talents. And then I sit here in my basement broadcasting live.
This is funner.
I suck.
This is funner.
Funner. Is that a word? Funner? You don't even drink.
No.
The Diehards, weeknights from 8 to 10 Eastern on the SportsMap Radio Network.
First Name Sports with Greg Frank.
There was a reporter going around asking the All-Stars who their favorite superhero was, and here's how Nick Castellanos handled that exchange.
You said Scooby-Doo. Can you kind of explain his superhero lore?
I think that a dog that can talk and helps people by solving mysteries, I think is a superhero.
It hits home with me on the basis that, think about it, at least the traditional superheroes, Superman, Spider-Man, they're out in a real-world setting, and they're saving the world from something really bad. Is Scooby-Doo not doing that?
Scooby-Doo is not doing it by himself. To be a superhero, you have to be able to do it on your own.
So that's the biggest thing. It has to be an individual effort.
I think so.
I'll allow that. I think that's a good baseline characteristic. So now that I've thought this through, I will say that Scooby-Doo is not a superhero. Castellanos at least made me think a little bit. So there you go. If that's what you tuned in for today, is Scooby-Doo a superhero? We've tackled those issues on the show.
First Name Sports, weekday afternoons from 2 to 4 Eastern. First Name Sports with Greg Frank.
Victor Wembanyama says that the NBA is less physical than European basketball. You played 2 summer league games. Victor Wembanyama is kind of calling everybody in the NBA soft. There was already going to be a target on this guy's back. Now I'm sure the first time the Spurs play the Warriors, Draymond's going to remind them, you're in the NBA, brother, and we're not all antis.
First Name Sports, weekday afternoons from 2 to 4 Eastern.
Youngstown, Warren, and Salem's local and national sports talk can be found on TuneIn and the Live 365 app at Western Reserve Radio. WRDB, The Scourge.
Mill Creek Golf Course has been the Valley's leader for golfing fun since 1928. It features 36 challenging holes designed by the legendary Donald Ross and was voted a top 30 municipal facility by Golf Week in 2012. The Mill Creek Golf Shop is a certified Callaway Golf custom fitting center and is stocked with your favorite golf apparel and accessories. Mill Creek Golf Course is now booking tee times for this year's golf season. Please call us at 330-740-7112 or online at millcreekmetroparks.org.
In the small town of Elmira, New York, a boy was born into an all-American family. The odds of him achieving his dream in the fashion industry? 1 in 23 million. The odds of having a child diagnosed with autism? 1 in 68. I am Tommy Hilfiger, and my family is affected by autism. Learn more at autismspeaks.org/signs. Brought to you by Autism Speaks and the Ad Council.
Mill Creek Golf Course is the Valley's leader for golfing fun with a practice range, short game area, and hole 55 bar and grill all on site. Mill Creek Golf Course features a friendly PGA professional staff available for instruction, along with 36 challenging holes designed by the legendary Donald Ross. Don't forget family fun night golf on Fridays and Saturdays for just $25. For details and tee times, call 330-740-7112 or go online to millcreekmetroparks.org.
Hey, let me ask you something. Would you seat your 3-year-old child on a windowsill? Would you seat them beside a lit fireplace or by the deep end of a pool? One last question. Would you seat your child in a car seat that's not correct for them? Car crashes are a leading killer of children ages 1 to 13. Secure their future. Seat them in the correct car seat. For more information, visit safercar.gov/the-right-seat. A message from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
It's time to kick back and listen to the sports page with your host, Pat Lucia, right here on Western Reserve Radio. You can call the show at 330-707-4202 and tell everyone what's on your mind in the wonderful world of sports. Now, here's your host, Pat Lucia.
Saturday morning sports page. Pat Lucia, 330-707-4202. Get in and talk sports. Yeah, we're back from a few weeks off, and we'll probably take a few more weeks off here in the summer of 2023. A lot to get to, though. We've kind of left the NBA playoffs were heating up, the finals, and obviously Jokic and the Denver Nuggets took care of business, beating the Miami Heat in 5 games. That seems like years ago, but it was only a month ago. NBA stories, Damian Lillard obviously is the big headliner. There was a lot of obviously free agent signings in the NBA in the last month or so, and the big talk is Damian Lillard. Where does he end up going? Does he end up getting traded to the Miami Heat, as all the buzz seems to be? So we'll probably talk a little bit NBA, but a lot going on in football. Obviously, probably the big news this past week was Pat Fitzgerald, the Northwestern head coach, was fired. due to hazing incidents, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Not really wanting to get into the details. You can read all about the details. The question is going to be, who is going to be taking his spot right now? They have an interim coach. They named, I believe it was yesterday. The question is going to be long term. Do the president and do the athletic director even survive this mess? Obviously, people are very critical of how the firing went down for Pat Fitzgerald. First, he was giving a 2-week suspension by the president after somewhat extensive investigation. And in essence, just within a day or two later, after some information came out about the graphics of the hazing, the president decided to fire Pat Fitzgerald. And now, obviously, Pat Fitzgerald has a lawyer and is going to sue Northwestern and go after them for the remainder of his contract. So at the end of the day, you have to look at this. Does Northwestern obviously deal with it at that end of the spectrum instead of keeping Pat Fitzgerald and dealing with maybe potential more people coming out with graphic description of the hazing and what occurred? Northwestern would just as soon fire him and deal with the press, the media, critical of how the firing went down. So I think they decide that they don't want a situation occurring where if they kept Pat Fitzgerald and in essence more information came out about how all this hazing was occurring, and again, the graphic nature of it, which I will not discuss. Bottom line is they'll go ahead, deal with Fitzgerald. Maybe they pay him off. They obviously fired him for cause. They don't want to pay the remainder of his contract, which I believe is somewhere in the neighborhood of $40 million or thereabouts. One other note, though, a lot of people are looking at this as Pat Fitzgerald was 1-11 last year, and I believe he was struggled the last 2 years. I think it was 4-20. So in essence, some people are feeling that maybe if he was the other end around and 20-4, does he keep his job? This is the fact that he had a losing record, and then obviously all this comes up. It's easier to get rid of a coach. Maybe they felt Pat Fitzgerald has basically kind of tapped out. He met kind of the wall. The program starting to go downhill. This ugly situation comes up with the hazing, and I know hazing occurs, but the way I talked about this hazing, it's a little bit over and above borderline criminal potential behaviors. Dave Clark is here laughing.
Yeah,
and the hazing was obvious. Like I said, I don't want to get into the graphic. I read about it. When I read the article, after they had suspended Pat Fitzgerald, I read the article the following day in the New York Post that had more information about the whistleblower. And in essence, after you read that article, and then a couple other players have come out of the woodwork, sort of to speak, and say, yeah, that was occurring. You read that, and I basically knew Fitzgerald was going to get fired.
Yeah,
I mean, that did not come as a shock, because especially when after the 2 weeks, after they suspended him for 2 weeks, then this comes out about, the kind of the graphic detail of what occurred. Bottom line is the president then says, "Oh, we're going to reconsider this 2-week suspension and look into this." And then it was within the day later, Fitzgerald was basically fired and sent packing.
Yeah, and I was laughing not of what happened, but the fact that even to say that you're being very kind, saying it might have been criminal nature. Oh man, that horrifying.
Yeah, I read it. I'm not going to get into. I'm not going to get in. I don't want to get into the. I would just people go ahead, Google it. You can read about it. I don't want to. It's graphic enough. I don't want to even talk about it on the air. I'm just going to say that what occurred. At the end of the day, I read what occurred, and here's your situation too. You see what happened with Paterno and Sandusky at Penn State, and all the years that happened. And Northwestern is probably thinking in the back of their head, hey, wait a minute. This has come to our attention now. I know they screwed it up because why did they give him a 2-week suspension? They
Yeah.
probably should have just canned him there.
Right.
But now the question that I had and what had come up is how, if this was occurring, how do the assistant coaches keep their jobs? Maybe they figure, again, and I'm kind of speculating here, that because if they deep six the assistant coaches, what do they do for a team this year? I think they get rid of Fitzgerald, and I think at the end of the year they basically do away and fire everybody, and then they bring in a new coach who starts brand new all over. There's the interim coach that they hired. I don't have the name in front of me, but I think he's just there to get him through the season. Yeah. I don't see him getting the job, and I don't see the assistants. They will get a year, and then I think they'll basically deep six the whole program.
I almost, with the things that I read, you hate it would be devastating to the Big Ten and to that university if they said, we're shutting down football this year. No football, we're shutting it down. And, I thought about that because you're keeping those assistants. There's no way that every assistant there didn't know. It might have been somebody who didn't know exactly. But out of all that's been going on, they know. And they know it was going on. And they allowed it. Because it should have been whistleblown a long time ago. So, for me, it's hard to even, let me say this. If I had a child going there that was playing, they got rid of Fitzgerald. That same coaching staff is there. My kid is out of there.
Right.
So fast, it make your head spin.
Right.
He'd be out of there because whoever, if they there, they know what was going on. They didn't stop it. So who's to tell what else? They may try to be, real easy this year to make sure nothing happens. But I would not trust it one bit. And it's sad because when I think of Pat Fitzgerald, All-American linebacker there, beloved Northwestern player, he's the one that brung that program up to where they were going to Rose Bowls. They were doing things, big things, winning seasons. But, these last couple of years have been bad. But when you think about it, was it just the play? Or was guys not playing to their potential because they didn't want to play there no more? But they're hooked in there. One thing about Northwestern is a great academic school.
Right. That's their claim to fame it's always been academic. It's a private institution.
Right.
It is known for academics. Sports are secondary.
Yep.
And that they're in the Big Ten and they reap all the benefits of the Big Ten.
Right.
But they still want to stand behind like they're an Ivy League type of school.
Right.
And that, but granted, they are, but they aren't because they make a lot more money than those Ivy League schools.
For sure. But
being in the Big Ten, but they still want to give you but we are kind of above everybody else when it comes to academics.
Right. And they have been a top academic school. And
right.
So, you got guys that's in a hard place. You want that education from there. But then again, if you're playing sports, you want to be like, I want to get out of here too. So it's a rough situation. But when I heard that, it was just hard for me to believe that Coach Fitzgerald would allow this or be behind it, whatever.
Or not. I mean,
if you don't do anything,
right,
then you know what's going on, but you don't do anything to stop it. You're just as guilty, if not more so, because you have the upper hand on the entire program to stop it. And you don't do anything, you're worse than the people that's committing the act. And he definitely, like you said, you were shocked that he was just not, forget the 2 week.
Yeah,
2 week thing. This is candid right there.
Right. I don't understand why like they try to get a 2-week suspension and then after you read the graphic details that came out and
was that after they read or because why would you make a decision on a suspension until you find out
well
details?
And that's kind of what seems to be the muddled water is like why did they make the decision and then this whistleblower they supposedly didn't know about the whistleblower but this hazing incidents what kind of investigation was occurring there
Don't seem like much.
I still think what is ultimately could happen here is I think the president's only been there a year, but he kind of screwed up this whole deal with Fitzgerald as far as the 2 week, and now we're going to fire him. I would not be surprised if the board gets together at Northwestern and at the end of the day fire the president. The AD is gone. Obviously, Fitzgerald is already gone. And then ultimately all the assistants are gone. And that they will go through this season with the interim coach with the idea, okay, let's just get through it. Because like I thought the same thing you did, should they basically get rid of fire everybody, suspend football for the season, and then ultimately start over, put it all back together, but then, start with getting a new president, a new AD, the head coach, all the assistants are all gone, get rid of everybody, give the players the ability to either go to school there, fill their scholarships, they're not going to play, or go anywhere they want to go and play football, and just pretty much just shut it down for the year. I think obviously the Big Ten wouldn't like that because then that's going to obviously impact Big Ten scheduling. So at the end of the day, I think that I really believe that at the end of the day, firing Fitzgerald is just going to appease press and, people out there. And then ultimately the board will meet and somewhere they will get rid of it, I believe. I don't know, maybe the president can survive this. I can't see the AD surviving it. And I certainly can't see any of the assistants or coaches surviving any of this.
Right.
And in essence, just basically do the old scorch the earth, as we've referred to it a few times. And then you build it back from even the president all the way, down, and then you work up.
Yeah. But what's so, I don't want to use the word remarkable because it's not a good thing, but it's hard to believe or understand the fact that these programs, just like we talked about Sandusky in the past with Paterno, how did these things go on for so long and nobody says anything? It's mind blowing to me. I mean, nobody. You would have never suspected any of this at Northwestern all this time.
No.
And how long has this been going on? That's the thing. It might have been going on for quite some time. We just don't know. And it gets to a different degree. And now I just got to that degree that, hey, somebody had to come out.
Well, here's the other part of this. And somebody brought this up. And Fitzgerald's last two seasons has not been so dismal. He didn't have, like I said, last year they started out, they were 1-11 last year. I heard the number in the last 2 years, they were 4-20. I'm looking that up. But at the end of the day, Fitzgerald's numbers, he was coaching from 2006 to 2022. He was 109 and 90. So he had one of the best coaching records at Northwestern in history. So obviously he did, he was an excellent coach there. Got him, like you said, he got him into the Big Ten finals. Went into a Rose Bowl. They've played good, but the question ultimately comes down to with him is if he had not been losing the last two seasons, and if it was the other way around, does he keep his job? And that the 1-11 from last year, they could see the direction of the program. Oh, he was 3-9. So he was 4-20 the last 2 years. He was 3-9 in 2021, 1-11 last year. He was 4-20 the last 2 years. Had he and 1-8 in conference in each year, 1-8 in 2021, 1-8 in 2022. The question comes down if he was say 20-4, 9-3 and 11-1, does he survive this?
I don't know.
I don't know.
I mean, the graphic details of things.
The graphic details are brutal. I don't know
if he can survive.
I don't know how you survive it. I've heard some some naysayers out there saying, yeah, but if he was winning, they would find a way to put this under the rug.
Yeah.
That this
I don't
was
think they could have, but they might have tried to put it on somebody else.
Right.
And saying that, he wasn't aware of
right.
it.
And then maybe fired assistants.
But nobody would believe that. Because the first thing I would think of, you didn't know. Let's say you honestly did not know. How good of a coach are you? Because you're not just a head coach of a football team, but you're a leader of men, young men, and not just them on the field, but you got to make sure things are going good in the classroom, outside of the classroom. What are their daily activities? You want to make sure what's going on, because you are the one that went and sat in those parents' living room and told them how you're going to take care of their son, and they're going to come out here and play for me, but I'm going to make sure they're on their work, doing this, that, and all this stuff going on, you don't know. Now, right there puts in question of how much are you really paying attention to your program. Maybe on the field you are, but other than that, you're not. So that's how I would look at it as a parent, and I still would be ready to be in up in arms. So that what we read in there, you basically would say, I think he would have got it. Now, would it have been as harsh as things been? Maybe not. The guy was winning, because we know the thing, no matter what happens, if you can win, you win at all costs. I hate to say that, but it is a true statement that goes around in sports.
Well, there was an article that basically was talking about like Georgia and all the problems that they've had with their players, but Kirby Smart keeps his job. Now, I don't know. They don't have, we don't know they have hazing, but they've had all those issues with the players off the field.
Right.
The auto accident, the deaths, etc. Yeah. But somehow, some way, Kirby Smart keeps his job. And this was an article drawing the comparisons between, but Kirby Smart is winning and he's winning national titles.
Yeah.
And then obviously.
Yeah, they try to compare. I don't compare them. And the reason I don't, because individuals that go out and do things, I mean, you got to, as a leader of men, you do got to try to monitor them. But I can come and check on you every second I can. But I'm not with you 24/7. That's unrealistic. And you got 100 and something players on there, so you can't be with them every second.
No.
So if they go out and commit something crazy outside of the school thing, I mean, you can't just put that on a coach for that. Now, if you know he's been getting in trouble in little things and you didn't squash those things or put some type of, leniency on him, then you're at fault. But if something can happen, random thing happens, and you can't blame that. This type of thing was a continuance of hazing over
and over
and getting some more severe and craziness. Yeah, that's a problem. That's a big difference from guys going out committing certain acts of things. Right. I don't put them in the same category. Because they ain't going there. They right there on campus doing these things. We're not talking about stuff that happened, down in Athens, down in Atlanta, somewhere in Georgia, or wherever the school may be. But we're talking right there on campus.
Yeah, and I think
in the facility. That's crazy.
Where at least this gets really hard, and to your point, is this is hazing. There's sexual issues involved with the hazing, so it's bringing it all to a different level.
Right.
You do have the issues that they've had with some of the players at Georgia, and some that's everywhere. And I guess that's one issue, but the hazing and what occurred there, and then you're actually getting into the Paterno Sandusky issue, especially with this and how long has it been going on. And again, if you had a son there that was being hazed, and I mean, the reality is, and someone called in a talk show yesterday and even said, okay, so are they going to go after some of these players on a criminal part?
Yeah.
Because that's what it's, when you read it, this is criminal behavior. And so that's the other thing. I mean, this is sexual assault, criminal behavior that is occurring here. or however you read it and you start to say, hey, wait a minute, this is some really severe stuff with this quote hazing. So now all of a sudden you're thinking in the back of your head, oh my gosh, do they start looking at some of these players potentially at that end of the spectrum? And then you're looking at and then you almost start looking at the coaching staff. I don't know how the coaching staff survives any of this. I can't even see the athletic director surviving. And I won't even be surprised if they just tell the president, you've been there 1 year. Yeah, you walked into it. You mishandled it. We need to start all over. I could see them giving that president a buyout after 1 year, the AD gone, and then all coaching and everything at the end of the season. They already fired a baseball coach for bullying. His name was Jim Foster, and they just fired the baseball coach because he was involved with the bullying that went on there. So, and with the baseball program. So they've got, when you start reading about this, then you have these other issues with going on with Fitzgerald. You got to almost take a step back and saying, what else is going on in that school? You start looking at some of these Big Ten programs, like what occurred at Michigan State with all the sexual assault with the women involved with the doctor. And it's just you can't basically tell me, well, one's worse than the other. No, they're all bad. Yeah. It's all bad. Yeah. You don't give me the degree. Well, this isn't quite it's all bad. Regardless. It's all terrible and bad.
And the degree of bad is in your own really decision.
Right.
I might say, oh, that was bad. You might say that's terrible.
Right.
We have a different look at it. But
it's all bad.
It's all bad. All of it.
It's all bad.
I don't care what the degree is.
I don't care what the degree, and it's all bad. You have adults who are supervising young men, young women, and things are not going well, and bad behavior is occurring, and the adults are not doing anything about it. And as you said, you had a daughter or son. You're not going to let your daughter or son, you are
out of there.
Basically entrusting these adults to take care of your son or daughter, and hazing, and this is going on.
Too much.
It's way too much. So in essence,
and you know what, Pat, this is just going to another level, but people need to think about this. I'm trying to Virginia Tech situation. Remember when I think it was Virginia Tech, when the former player came back and killed the kids. Now,
yes,
we're not going to say that this is what happened there, but when you hear about these type of hazings and what went on when you're being degraded like that, you don't know what type of psychological effect it does on an individual. That now we look at them as, they're crazy. They come back and shoot up the school or shoot. Well, they didn't even shoot up the school. They directed these things right at the athletes, right at coaches, right at. What is going on in these places? Right. We always want to point the finger at that person coming back. Yes, it's bad what they did, but why did they do it?
And that's it. See, what was the trigger?
Something triggered to have him snap like that and only base his attack on certain individuals. Why is that? The things that we read, I don't know how I would react to something like that if that was happening to me.
Well, and that's the
and I just, the things we read, you could lose any sense of reality and just go nuts on somebody. You could. Those things that we read, oh man, I don't know what it might do to somebody. And come back and just do
that's
everything.
The problem they're going to ultimately have is the players that, and that's the thing too, they were kind of talking about this, is what it might be okay for one player, it's horrible for another.
Yeah.
And it's like, and then you're reading about this stuff and you're thinking, this is, like I said, I read that article, I think it was Sunday morning, and after I read it, I said, he's fired.
Yeah, I mean,
I read that. And stuff. I just read that and I said, how can you do that to athletes? I mean, I know there's talk about hazing, like carrying the suitcase, the luggage,
Go out
going,
there and get me my lunch.
go get me my lunch, or go get me a water, go get water. I don't want to go get it. All right, that that occurs. That's totally different than, this is sick, twisted, but then the psychological damage it does to some of these athletes. And
Right.
then again, some of these athletes end up with post-traumatic stress syndrome
Yeah.
and other mental issues that they've been faced with this. And
Yeah.
so
it's almost like gang-like activities when you think about it.
It is. And it can be traumatic, and certain individuals are more traumatized based on their mental makeup. And that doesn't mean they're necessarily weak and, they're just that they just can't deal with it. And
Right.
you have to understand that, that's just the way they are.
And that's why
but
you
the act itself is so horrific in my eyes.
Yep. And that's why you get those feedbacks, like I said, people coming back and doing harmful things.
We'll be back after a timeout. Saturday Morning Sports Page, 330-707-4202, Western Reserve Radio.
Driving has a rhythm all its own. Don't wreck it with a text. Before you get behind the wheel, silence your phone. Or better yet, designate a texter. For more text-free driving tips, visit stoptextstoprex.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration.
Sandrock Concrete specializes in all types of concrete, driveways, sidewalks, basements, and garages. We also do stamp-colored concrete in many different designs. We do interior and exterior stonework, regular brick and block work. Sandrock Concrete is fully insured. Call Jerry Sandrock at 330-506-0013 for an estimate. Also find them on Facebook at Sandrock Concrete LLC. Sandrock Concrete, where you deal with the owner all the time.
Located in Applewood Estates in Boardman Township, the Applewood Swim and Tennis Club offers a pleasant family environment. Choose a membership that meets your needs and enjoy a relaxing venue that includes not only swimming for the family, but also youth activities such as competitive swimming, tennis, and more. Enjoy the friendly atmosphere all summer long with the staff and members of the Applewood Swim and Tennis Club. For more information, go to applewoodswimandtennis.com or call 330-953-2833.
Meet Josh.
Hi, everybody.
Josh is a high school basketball player, solid shooter, great teammate.
Hey, don't forget my tenacious D.
And he's my son.
Oh.
So, what does Josh do to be the best basketball player he can be?
I play tennis.
Studies show that student athletes here in Ohio who play more than one high school sport are more likely to excel. Tennis does more than improve Josh's conditioning. It gives him a fresh competitive outlet, reduces the risk of injury by cross-training, and introduces him to different coaching techniques and new friends.
Don't get me wrong, hoops are my first love. Tennis just gives me a little break.
So when the new season begins, Josh isn't burned out on basketball. He's eager to play, and you can see the difference in his game.
This message presented by the Ohio High School Athletic Association and the Ohio Interscholastic Athletic Administrators Association.
Saturday Morning Sports Page coming right back at you, 330-707-4202. Yeah, we're talking a lot about Pat Fitzgerald, the Northwestern, and they're going to be obviously moving on from him. He's been fired. We question whether or not at the end of the year do they fire pretty much everybody, and I think they have to. Then the only question is, does the athletic director survive this? Since he was there and a lot of this went under his watch, and now the president of Northwestern's only been there 1 year, does he survive it, or does the board get together and say we need to do a total, complete overhaul and start over, and maybe just strip the team down to literally nothing? And then obviously the coaches are gone, the players obviously stay, or they let the players transfer out.
Right.
And then they just start over again with a new coach
Yeah.
and a brand new. And the reality is, if you bring in the new coach, he brings his own assistants anyway.
Yeah.
So he's gonna, and he's a new coach will bring in new coaches, assistant coaches with him, and they rebuild it.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see how that plays it out. The other story that made some press this past week was the continuing saga, I should say, or saga of the NFL and John Gruden. This is Don Van Natta wrote an excellent article in ESPN detailing basically what occurred with John Gruden's emails. Also, it obviously involves Washington, and this story has got so many tentacles because the other part of Washington is, I believe it's this Tuesday. They're going to get together and decide. The NFL is going to vote on the purchase of the Washington Commanders.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess, rumor is that Dan Snyder, just still doesn't want to sell the team. And so he may be there and he may be trying to undercut that.
Right.
And obviously the owners supposedly want him out, and they will vote and approve the purchase of the team. So, or the sell of the team. So anyway, this thing though, that with John Gruden, there's 650,000 emails out there. This goes back to what we have talked about previously. However, now this has come out. Don Van Natta has done a great article, and he talks about how Roger Goodell wanted John Gruden out. And it was basically the NFL that exposed all these emails. And that Mark Davis, the owner of the Raiders, did not want to fire John Gruden. But in essence, a first email went out that was horrendous email that Gruden wrote that dealt with the DeMar Smith.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And evidently that went to the owner Davis and Mark Davis, and he didn't want to fire Gruden for that one email.
Mm-hmm.
And evidently there's talk about, since he was holding back, then all these other, the NFL and Roger Goodell released
all the emails,
all these other emails. And there was a thing, because Don Van Natta was on Mad Dog Russo this week, and he was talking about it. And there was one thing, this is amazing. He goes, when Gruden was doing Monday Night Football, he questioned whether or not they should have thrown a penalty flag on a late hit.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess Goodell had seen that. And then John Gruden got a phone call from Goodell wanting John Gruden to come to New York and talk to John Madden and Jeff Fisher about what is a good, what's a bad hit, what's a dirty hit, what's not. And because evidently they were on the committee for, basically proper hitting in the NFL.
Right.
And if you remember and John Gruden evidently response to Roger Goodell was, well, wait a minute. John Madden coached the Raiders back in like the late 60s and the 70s. They were the dirtiest team in football.
Right.
You had Skip Thomas, Jack Tatum, basically struck Darryl Stingley, maimed Darryl Stingley, Atkinson, who was clothesline. And, Fisher had one of the dirtiest teams, hard-hitting teams. And Gruden's response was, you want me to talk to them and have them tell me what a late hit is? Are you kidding me? They basically invented it. Mm-hmm. So evidently, I didn't know this, but this came out in the piece. It's on ESPN. So it's a great article to read. But basically, Gruden was like, basically telling Roger Goodell in so many words, you're out of your mind.
Right.
And evidently they never got along, and it was building even since that's not the only case. There was a lot of animosity between Roger Goodell and John Gruden.
Right.
I never knew this, but
Right.
it's in the article. Well, then ultimately what happened is, to get back to this story, is when Mark Davis didn't want to really fire John Gruden, then the NFL, and obviously the NFL has denied all of this, that they're saying we never did any of this. The NFL went ahead and then released all these other emails that pretty much sealed John Gruden's fate. Now John Gruden has sued the NFL. This is where this can get real tricky, because the judges have ruled the NFL wants to get this to arbitration, because then if they don't want this to go into court, they want an arbitration, because basically none of the emails will come out in arbitration. The courts have ruled, no, this is not arbitration. This should be go to court. They don't want, the NFL doesn't want it to go to court, because then Gruden can then say, for discovery purposes, I want to see all these other emails, these 650,000 emails. And obviously the NFL does not want anybody reading these emails. They say, no, it's private only, and therefore we're not going to release these emails, because obviously you and I have talked about this time and time again. As horrific as maybe those emails were with Bruce Allen and John Gruden, and evidently John Gruden said a lot of terrible things against even Roger Goodell in those emails. And that was probably one other reason why Goodell basically wanted to get rid of John Gruden. Bottom line is, the NFL doesn't want those 650,000 other emails out, because now you're throwing, who else gets implicated here? And who else is involved in emails? And what are these emails saying? And what other teams are involved? And what other GMs, scouts, et cetera, presidents, club presidents?
Oh, yes.
I mean, and then you don't know what they're saying in these emails, as far as, are there bad jokes? Are there inappropriate racial slurs? I mean, you have no idea, but Gruden wants to get all these emails out. So right now, it's up to the Nevada Supreme Court. Gruden has won. He's gone through the lower courts and has won. And the courts have ruled so far. Now it's up to the Supreme Court of Nevada, and they'll let us know sometime later this year whether or not this goes to arbitration, or no, it goes the other way into court.
Right.
And if it goes into court, then the NFL would have to, the next step for the NFL they would have to basically go to the U.S. Supreme Court,
right,
to rule on it, or they buckle up and then they let John Gruden. And John Gruden has come out and said, money's got nothing to do with this. I don't want their money. Because right now the NFL obviously wants to write John Gruden a massive check to basically have him go away. Because the last thing the NFL wants is these 650,000 emails out there in court, and then obviously they're going to be out, and the public's going to have their eyes on them, and this is just going to be an absolute disaster for the NFL.
Right.
That the NFL does not want these emails to get out. And they don't want them in court, because now you're going to be implicating a lot of other people besides just John Gruden and Bruce Allen.
Oh, yes. And it's more than just them.
And of course you do.
Yep.
You and I know that, when you have basically rich, it's like a fraternity of men with power, usually bad things occur.
Yep.
I mean, they already had the problem with the Washington Redskins photo. I still, to this day, I don't even know how they're not in jail. The Washington Redskins were photographing the cheerleaders as they were getting undressed. I mean, how is and then obviously the cheerleaders, Washington paid them a boatload of money.
Yep.
How is Washington not in jail, or somebody's not in jail for that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's all right. It's, the thing about Gruden is the thing, that old Chucky, but you find out a lot of things. But I'm going to tell you one guy that stood out about and said things about John Gruden, and people were saying he was just a sour grape. Keyshawn Johnson said a long time ago, before any emails, before anything about John Gruden, he said that guy's fake. He said it on national TV in an interview and told him he's fake. He's not a good person. He this, that. He said it. He said, I could read right through this guy. I done seen different things happen. He is not a good person. And you remember him talking all about it. Now, that was years ago.
Oh, that was when he
was playing in
when
Tampa.
he was playing in Tampa. You saw those; they were getting into it on the
Also,
sidelines.
Yeah. Yep.
No, he never
said,
had.
I didn't like him. He said he's
No,
not a good person. Now, years later, things come out, and then they try to get interviews with Keyshawn, and he was at this time he just said, I talked about it years ago.
Yeah, let it go.
And now it came in fruition, and that's all he left.
That's it.
He said, I ain't got nothing else to say. Because they were ripping him apart. If people remember, Keyshawn Johnson was getting ripped apart by the media and everybody else because they said, you're just sour grapes because you don't know how to act. You're a diva receiver that's got a lot of stuff that's saying things about a coach you didn't get along with because you weren't getting the ball, and that's all it is. No? Stuff comes out later on and you find out, no, this guy is something else. So it's just... I lost total respect for Gruden after I heard that. But who else? I know it's many more that we probably rave about and like and find out. It's just like the little things with Jerry Jones that popped out. People see he's trying to hide behind, but it's in there. He's probably one of the guys in that group.
And that's
sure.
You see, the whole thing with this is you have the billionaires. It is that quote boys club. And just because they're billionaires, it doesn't mean they're necessarily very good people.
Right. Right.
And the question I always have is Dan Snyder has probably a lot of dirt on these owners.
Yeah.
And they don't want him, they want him to just go away.
Right.
The question's going to be, does he go away quietly, or is he going to really raise enough stink and possibly, if he could deep six that sale, but it sounds like that's going to go through.
Mm-hmm.
We'll know. We should know soon. A little bit back to they had 4 reasons why, and we'll move on from Gruden, but 4 reasons why arbitration doesn't apply. This is basically, I'm citing from the KT NTV.com in Las Vegas. It said Gruden's employment contract was terminated before the complaint was filed. The NFL arbitration process provisions does not cover former employees. 3, the complaint doesn't relate to any allegations of detrimental conduct. And 4 was arbitration would be unconscionable, both procedurally and substantially. So, i.e., at least that's how the courts rule. It's now up to the Nevada Supreme Court to rule. And why does this all matter is because if the Supreme Court rules that this is not arbitration, ultimately, does the NFL go to the Supreme Court with it? Because I think they will. Because I think the NFL is going to all ends of the earth not to have these emails released. And if they lose to the Supreme Court of the United States, then they're going to have to release the emails.
Yeah.
And that's when things are going to get pretty ugly because, we would be really naive. Do you think that John Gruden is the only one here that was exchanging bad emails, inappropriate emails with Bruce Allen? And a lot of people don't have any very good things to say about Bruce Allen either.
Right.
So you've got a lot of, and then you've got to wonder how many other teams, GMs, and other coaches could be involved in these email trails. Because as we already talked about, emails go and they go everywhere.
Right. And Bruce Allen, was that George Allen's son?
That's George. That was the son of George Allen's son. Let's go to the phones. You're on the sports page. What's up?
Good morning, Pat. Good morning, Dave. How you guys doing?
Hey, Irish Spike. What's up?
Doing well, guys. Missed you on the air the last couple of weeks. You guys were talking about Northwestern and Pat Fitzgerald.
Yes.
Okay. And let's go back, guys, 8 days ago, last Friday afternoon, July 7th. It was the classic late Friday afternoon news drop by Northwestern. People like to do that, guys. Hope things go away over the weekend. People will ignore it.
Yes.
So the question I have for you guys is, when all that information came out late Friday afternoon, and originally, if you guys recall, Pat Fitzgerald was suspended 2 weeks without pay.
Correct.
And then by Monday night, within 72 hours, he was terminated. What changed in that story, guys, from Friday afternoon to Monday night? What changed? Right?
Outside of
zero.
Yeah. I mean, I guess here's my
72 hours to come back. They waited for the public reaction. When Pat Lucia read about this, and you texted me, Pat, on Sunday.
Yeah,
you said
that's
he's
right.
done.
I said I did. That's right. I forgot about that. Right.
Remember that you texted me. I read that article.
Right.
He's done.
Yes. I sent you. That's right. I forgot. Right. That was that. It was, yeah. I sent you the article. I was actually, the article came out. It was Saturday, and I sent it to you Sunday.
Yes,
I read
and
that.
I didn't read it until you sent it.
Right. And I sent it. And basically, after I read this article, it was in the New York Post. It said Northwestern players allege hazing involved barbaric, coerced sexual acts. And this was July 8th of 2023, which basically that was last Saturday, late night or day at 5 o'clock. But the point is, I sent you that article after, and you read it, and I read it, and I said after he was finished. Because you read that article, you are correct. So right. And again, I guess that's a good question. And I guess did the president did he know the facts of this article and only suspended him for 2 weeks?
That's a great question. What took 72 hours?
Right.
You went from a 2 week suspension. I actually got, and I'm not making this up, guys. Last night, Monday morning, I had a bet with a guy. I'm in a group text with some Notre Dame fans across the country, and he loves Pat Fitzgerald, the mentality. He's a Northwestern guy, been there his whole life, maybe one of the most famous players in Northwestern football history. And he said, "Oh, he'll survive this. He'll survive this." I go, "He's not surviving this." I said, to me, guys, this goes back to Jim Tressel back in 2010. Remember, that originally started as a 6-game suspension, and then ultimately 2 months later it turned into termination.
Right.
When this stuff gets out there and the media gets a hold of it and they keep writing about it and talking about it, everybody in the board of administration says this story is not going away. We have to make it go away. And there's only one way you make it go away, right? You terminate the coach.
Well, ultimately, and here's my other, and this came up, I listened to Mad Dog Russo about it, and he brought this up. How did the assistant coaches survive? Because they were obviously involved in this on some level. They must have known about it.
Good point.
And so the question comes down to, and the AD's there, and then you start pointing the finger. Why didn't the AD know? Now, the president can make an argument, I've only been there 1 year. But then the other question you have to ask yourself with the president is, if you knew this and only suspended him for 2 weeks, you need to go. And I think at the end of the day, we talked about it earlier that Dave Clark brought up about about basically doing away with football for the year, like deep sixing everything, firing it, cleaning house, suspending it for a year, and saying we're done with football for the entire year. Let the players either stay, get their degree, they could go here on their scholarship, or they can go to any other school and play.
I was going to say, are they immediately this transfer portal, I lose track of it. Are those kids right now, guys, allowed to go to any school they want? I mean, obviously training camps open up in 2 or 3 weeks at all schools, but it's kind of late in the game. We're in the middle of July, but are they free to leave?
Yes, they can.
They can. Okay.
Yeah, they can. They said right now they can put their, I heard they were talking about this. They can put their names in the transfer portal as of now, and they can transfer out. Dave Braun is the new interim head coach. He's the defensive coordinator at Northwestern. He's the head coach. I think if the board gets together, they will probably ride this season out with him. And then as soon as the season's over, I think they get rid of everybody. I don't see how they
obviously, I
can.
think we all agree this is going to be a long season for Northwestern football.
Yeah, it's going to be probably horrific because I think a lot of the players that are there may have, either liked Fitzgerald and say, well, they screwed the coach, I'm getting out of here. Or some players said, I'm getting out of here now because I knew this has been a problem going on. I still think you could probably have a lot of players leaving the program, which basically means I don't know who's left, and I don't think anyone's transferring to Northwestern. So, I mean, at the end of the day, I don't know how much of a team will be left, and then he'll just have to put up what he can. And then ultimately, I think he's going to lose. I think at the end of the day, I think the board gets together and says, we have no other choice but to start over totally. It's going to be a
Now, Dave, last Thanksgiving when they were, Fitzgerald, they finished 1-11 last year, and they lost to, I think, Western Illinois, and they lost to, not only a directional school, but a hyphenated school, one of the Louisiana Lafayette. They were losing to teams that they had no business losing to and finished 1-11. And you made the comment, Dave, if it was any other guy at Northwestern besides Pat Fitzgerald in the last 2-3 years been really down, he probably would have lost his job, but they were going to stay with him because he was, quote, a Northwestern guy.
Right. Yep.
Do you think that broke when the story came out Friday, that even though Pat Fitzgerald is one of the most famous players in Northwestern history, he's been there for, 30 years as a player and coach, assistant coach and head coach the last 17, that they had no choice but to move on?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You had to. You had to let it go because this situation, as I said, I don't even know how to horrific. It's probably too light.
It's almost too, I know.
I mean, this stuff is just unbelievable what happened. So, I mean, you just have to get rid of the guy. He has to be gone far away from this program now. And that's why I was wondering, you get all the assistants there. We know that they had to know something was going on. So that's what made me feel like, do you just shut it down? But it would do something, horrific to the Big Ten scheduling and then the program period, because can they come back and compete after being down for a year? I don't know.
Well, that's what I think. I think ultimately that's what they're trying to get by is I think they're trying to appease everybody by firing Fitzgerald, thinking, okay, that'll keep the dogs kind of away. But long term, when you read those hazing and what occurred there, I don't see how the board is basically going to put up with keeping. I mean, this guy, Dave Braun, could be a great guy. Maybe he had nothing to do. Who knows if he knew anything about this? But I think that you're to the point where you need to start totally over, and you have to go get a head coach. You might get rid of the AD. President's iffy, and then you just start over. And granted, to your point, Irish Mike, the fact that he had a losing record the last 2 years, we've mentioned it, 1-11, and he 3-9, made him 4-20. I think that basically maybe they thought in the back of their mind, not only do we have this horrific hazing incident, he was hitting the bottom anyway. Maybe it is time to move on, and now we have no choice, but we have to move on.
And you got to question whether it's talent, because they've always been able to compete, even though they got lower, 3 stars too. They have always been able to compete in the Big Ten, but they weren't competing, like you said, with hyphenated schools.
This year
they weren't. And that lets me know you have lost this team.
Right.
These guys are not even trying to perform for you. They're just going through the motions, because those teams that had never happened. Even on a bad Northwestern team, they would not lose to Louisiana Lafayette. It just wouldn't happen.
Just think, guys, the COVID year or COVID shortened season 2020. If you remember, Northwestern played Ohio State in the Big Championship game in Indianapolis, and they were winning the game at halftime.
Yes,
you remember that? Now Ohio State with Justin Fields came out and stomped in the second half, but they played really well for a half.
Yes, they did.
I mean, so I realized it was a shortened season. That was the 7th game of the year, and it was crazy stuff. But where Fitzgerald had that program, compared to other coaches, minus an Era Parsegian and some other guys that had success there. We can go on and list guys that didn't have success there. Right. I mean, Gary Barnett had success there, obviously, Era Parsegian and Pat Fitzgerald. But if you look over the last 60 years, the minus those 3 guys, we could say 8 to 10 coaches had no success there.
Yep, you are absolutely right.
Yeah, when you break it down, you're right. I mean, at the end of the day, when you look at the history, Pat Fitzgerald was their most successful coach in history when you look at really break it down. I mean, it's unfortunate he went out this way, but bottom line is when you look at Northwestern, he realistically in the last modern 40 years, he's had the most success of any of coaches out there. They've been decent coaches, but he actually brought it to a different level. He did. He brought it to a national level. Like you said, Irish Mike, the COVID year, they were in the Big Ten title, winning against Ohio State at halftime. I mean, Ohio State, found a way to win that game. They struggled, but at the end of the day, he had that team, but the last 2 years have not been bad. Then you take last year when it really hit the rock bottom. You almost have to think, did he lose that team for whatever reason? Maybe this hazing thing had something to do with it.
Yeah.
And
Good point.
ultimately,
Good point.
these kids were not going to play. Hey, hold on for a minute. We'll be back. There's the music. It's halftime. Saturday morning sports page. Pat Lucia, Dave Clark, got Irish Mike on the line. Back after a quick timeout.
You're listening to Western Reserve Radio, WRDB, The Scourge, a part of the Sports Map Radio Network.
WWE superstar Alberto Del Rio, take one.
Behold the angry giant.
Try it again, Alberto.
Behold the angry giant.
Perfect. Good luck tonight.
Behold the angry giant.
Yay! Read me another one, Dad.
This is WWE superstar Alberto Del Rio. It only takes a moment to make a moment. Take time to be a dad today.
Visit fatherhood.gov, brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Western Reserve Radio is the Valley's online source for sports talk and local live events. Tune in and be a part of their live weekly shows, as well as all of the hard-hitting action of Youngstown Phantoms hockey, high school football, and the GDFL. Find them at westernreserveradio.com. Tune in and the Live 365 app to be a part of the area's sports conversation. Be sure to visit them on Facebook at Western Reserve Radio and on Twitter at WR_radio.
In the small town of Elmira, New York, a boy was born into an all-American family. The odds of him achieving his dream in the fashion industry? 1 in 23 million. The odds of having a child diagnosed with autism? 1 in 68. I am Tommy Hilfiger, and my family is affected by autism. Learn more at autismspeaks.org/signs. Brought to you by Autism Speaks and the Ad Council.
Mill Creek Golf Course is the Valley's leader for golfing fun with a practice range, short game area, and hole 55 bar and grill all on site. Mill Creek Golf Course features a friendly PGA professional staff available for instruction, along with 36 challenging holes designed by the legendary Donald Ross. Don't forget family fun night golf on Fridays and Saturdays for just $25. For details and tee times, call 330-740-7112 or go online to millcreekmetroparks.org.
Saturday morning sports page, Pat Lucia, Dave Clark, and we'll bring Irish Mike back. There go Irish Mike. We were looking at Northwestern coaching history, and Pat Fitzgerald realistically has been their best coach since the modern football era. And I'm looking at their past. You can make an argument that Dick Hanley, who coached a team from 1927 and 1934, had a better winning percentage than Pat Fitzgerald. And now he had 576. He was 36-26. Pat Fitzgerald was 109 and 90, and he was 1-11 and 3-9. So, if you take his last 2 years out, he was really had a great record. So you could say that Pat Fitzgerald was their best coach in school history, break it down. but definitely in the modern football era, since 1950, he has been by far their best coach, not even close.
And I think Gary Barnett had a nice run in the mid-'90s when Fitzgerald was linebacker. I think they won a Rose Bowl.
Right.
Right. And Gary Barnett was 35 and 45.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
So, I mean, he had a okay record, but he had that winning record when he won. And then Randy Walker came in and coached for 6 years, and he was 37 and 46. He was from Miami of Ohio, and he died of a heart attack very suddenly. And then Pat Fitzgerald took over in 2006. So, and he's obviously been there. I believe, if I'm looking at this right, he's been the coach that's lasted the longest.
Correct. Yeah.
No coach has coached at North. Yes. No coach before him has coached that long. He's had
17 years somewhere in there.
Yeah, he was basically.
And I think, guys, when we look at schools like we're all college football fans, when we look at schools like Northwestern or Vanderbilt or Stanford, and you have a 9-3 record, 8-4, we look at you and say, wow, that's a great job.
Right.
Because we have different perceptions of those schools compared to the Alabamas, the Ohio States, the Georgias of the world. I mean, we just have a different perception of those things.
Yeah, you do.
Based upon history and tradition.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Northwestern's just had an absolutely, it's when you look at their history, they've kind of just, had just they've been a dismal team record-wise.
Correct.
I mean, Dennis Green coached there for 5 years, and he was 10 and 45. Great coach. Dennis Green, Denny Green's a great coach. He was 10 and 45. Aaron Parsegian was 36 and 35.
Correct, yeah.
I mean, Lou Saban was 08 and 1. I mean, you just go coach by coach. They've just, Pat Fitzgerald's a great coach.
Right.
When you take what he's done at Northwestern with the talent and, academic as far as who he can recruit to get in there, he's done an absolutely fantastic job. The only question now comes down to ultimately, will he fall on his feet somewhere? And I will say he will somewhere.
Right.
He will end up with a job somewhere down the road. I think so. I don't know. I could be wrong, but I think he might in the NFL end up. He's an assistant coach.
Yeah.
Somebody's going to bring him in. Some NFL
and that's where
team.
I think he may have to go. It's going to be, this thing has to die
Right.
down for
This
him
is
to
going to be a
ever
while, right?
be in the college area.
I don't. Yeah, he
Because
might
that's
not
gonna be
be in
tough.
college I don't think that's where he's going to end. I don't think he stays in college.
Right.
I think his next path is somewhere in the NFL as an assistant coach somewhere. And I think I kind of assuming, but I tend to think he's not going to stay in the college ranks. Nobody will hire him.
Right. Yeah, I think that'd be very difficult for
No.
that to happen.
I think it's the NFL for him. And I think there's an NFL team that will definitely take a chance on him.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, NFL will.
Yep. Yeah, you're not going to be hazing grown men too easily.
No. You're
It's
not.
not gonna
That's
happen
going to
to
be
you.
different.
Yeah, it's a little different.
That's going to be a little different altogether. I think that at the end of the day, he ends up somewhere, but not in the college ranks.
Right.
So he's, like I said, this kind of took off. It went from the 2-week suspension, then out the door, and now basically you're looking at he's gone. And I think they're going to have to ultimately do away with the assistant coaches. Well, here's their way out too. If they don't give the job to the interim coach, which I tend to think they're not going to do, anybody they bring in is going to basically start over. Like if they go out and hire a coach, this guy's going to say, "Okay, fine, I'm bringing in all my own assistants," and no one's going to argue with him either.
Yeah, I mean, come on.
Right, but that's their easy way out. They don't have to necessarily be the bad guy, fire everybody. They just bring in a head coach.
He'll bring in his own
And then
guy.
he's going to say, well, I'm now the head coach at Northwestern, and everybody gets the heave-ho out of here. I'm bringing in all my own assistants.
There's no way he's going to keep guys
No.
lingering from that program
Right.
with his new regime. No way.
Yeah. Right. And I think there'll be an agreement. If they hire him, they'll say, look, we want you to get rid of everybody. And he goes, yeah, I want to get rid of them too. So that'll be an understanding, and in that way they can use the article. Well, hey, they got a new coach and he brings in his own guys, and then he builds it from the ground up.
Yeah,
he recruits, he goes to transfer portal, does what he needs to do, and he can build the school up that way. Now they just have to get through this. They just have to get through this season.
Yeah, and that's a difficult.
And that's going to be a tough nut to go.
Yes.
And Pat, you mentioned this 3 or 4 years ago, and I think you've been very accurate. When we went to this transfer portal, you don't have to sit out a year; that you can immediately transfer and become eligible immediately. You don't have to sit out that 12 to 18 months anymore, like in the past, and sit out a season and give up a year of eligibility. That those undergrad transfers of places like Northwestern, Stanford, and Vanderbilt of the world, that hurts those schools. Because it's not easy for students just to transfer in there. I mean, I know we all look at the football perspective, but when the academic people look at these grading transcripts, using the transfer portal for Northwestern is more difficult than in Alabama.
Correct. Mm-hmm. No, correct. That will be the challenge. Whoever takes the job has to deal with the academic standards, and then he's probably going to be that coach is going to be
that
limited.
School's more like player development. You hit the nail on the head, Pat, like in regards to those 3-star kids that are going to take 3 years to develop. They're not going to come and be able to play right away. Some of them are going to have to redshirt and get in the weight room and put on 25, 30 pounds. And, we say, we're not recruiting you for now. We're recruiting you for more like 3 or 4 years down the road.
Right. No, it's true. That's what's going to be. I mean, and again, the problem you ultimately have with Northwestern, and it's always been, as you look at the prior coaches, they've been good coaches. It's just that they can't go out and recruit the athletes to play. They have to recruit the students, and then hopefully they can develop them on the football field. But as you've seen all those years, Northwestern's always been at the bottom of the Big Ten.
Yeah.
Fitzgerald has basically made them something that they haven't ever been, really, long term. Gary Barnett had some success there with the Rose Bowl. But you could see he didn't even have a winning record when he left. And he was a very good coach, went on, I believe Coach Colorado had success. But the guy, and look at Ara Parsegian was a great coach.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And you can run down all those lists of all those, and they've been very good coaches, but they just couldn't win at Northwestern.
Right. Yep.
And Fitzgerald has kind of been the outlier in that regard. But the last 2 seasons, he struggled.
Yep. And that's after, just like you looked at Irish Mike a couple years ago, 2020, it was in the, regardless that it was the COVID year, still that team was in that Big Ten championship, and they played very good. And they brought players back that following year, and they were nowhere near the team that they were before then. So what was going on in that program for it to just descend the way it did? I mean, in a hurry, too.
It kind of fell off a table, sort of to speak.
Yep.
I mean, they were good, and then the last 2 years, they were not good. 3-9, and then 1-11.
Yeah, and very uncompetitive last year.
And last year they were not even, like you said. You're losing to the Louisiana Monroe, the directional school with a hyphen.
Illinois.
That's not a good thing.
Yeah, no, Southern Illinois, because I know YSU. When Southern Illinois came to YSU, that was the big media hype. Hey, they beat Northwestern, 2 weeks ago.
Right. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that was their claim to fame. Yep. But everybody beat Northwestern, just about.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. It's believe it or not, what's today, the 15th? A week from Wednesday, July 26th, Notre Dame has their first fall football camp practice, because if you guys will know, them and several other schools, the NCAA passed that new rule that you can start the last week of August now, and they're playing Navy on August 26th over in Dublin, Ireland. So obviously both those schools got to travel over there 5 or 6 days ahead of time, get rid of the time change, because obviously in Ireland it's 3:00 in the afternoon, 3:11 in the afternoon. So they start practice a week from Wednesday on the 26th of July for the opener on August 26th in Dublin, Ireland against the Naval Academy.
Isn't that something? 1 complete month.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah. And high school football starts August 17th.
Correct. Correct. Yeah, that's a Thursday. That's
So
That's
correct.
a Thursday.
So we're talking just a week from this.
Yeah.
Not a week.
I know a
but
lot of
month from
schools are
this Monday.
scrimmaging.
15th.
Saturday, August 4th is first scrimmage for a lot of schools on the 4th of August.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
that's
what,
basically
3 weeks from today, correct?
Yep.
Yeah, that's basically 3 weeks because right now today's the 15th.
Yeah.
3 weeks today would be August 4th.
Yep.
Correct.
Yeah, that's because right. And then like I said, Thursday night is August 15th. Is the high school schedules out yet?
Yes.
Oh, they're out. Okay.
And one of the proposals guys out there, and if you saw this in the last couple weeks, when the COVID year hit, they went from eight playoff teams to 16.
Right.
And
right. Did we lose you?
Still there, Mike?
Mike.
Irish Mike.
No, I think we lost.
We lost him. Yep.
That Irish Mike called back because he was just in the middle of that. I want to hear what he's saying.
Yeah.
'cause it was-
Yeah. What's going on with the?
Well, yeah, the football, the high school football is amazing because we're a month away almost. Here's Irish Mike back.
I mean, unbelievable.
Yeah. Hey, Irish Mike.
oh, sorry about that, guys. I hit the wrong button. I
Oh,
apologize.
that's okay.
I was going to tell you that when the COVID year, we went from 8 playoff teams to 16
Right.
in regions. And I
Right.
know talking to a lot of high school coaches around the area, they were adamantly against that idea because, when you have those when you have those week first round playoff matches, 1 versus 16, 2 versus 15, a lot of those games get out of hand very, very quickly.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, and obviously that playoff money goes all to the Ohio High School Athletic Association, and then the Columbus, the schools don't get to keep that money. So now they're talking about potentially putting everybody in the playoffs, just like basketball, just like baseball, just like softball and all the other sports, that everybody gets in. And
Well, with that, how do they? Okay, then, then they have to add another week to the playoffs, right?
yeah,
They
I would
put
think at least
everybody
one more
in?
week, right? I mean,
Yeah, it has to be.
I don't know the breakdown Division 1 through Division 7, but you would definitely have to add another week.
Well, you would have to add at least another week in some of these other. I mean, like you said, I know some of these ones, but you'd have to have some kind of add a week for like play-in. Would they do like a play-in tournament?
That I don't know. I don't know. I know this has been kicked around over the last month. There's several news stories and articles in the newspapers about the potential to have, not now, but say 2 or 3 years down the road.
Yeah.
And I guess I know through people that know people in Columbus, they're adamant about keeping the championship games the first weekend in December, December 4, 5, 6. So that's championship weekend. So they don't want to extend into the second week of December because obviously you have closer to the holiday season. You have more weather issues with
Right.
snow, cold, etc. We're already starting the week on the 17th. If you are we going to start like now August 10th with our first scrimmages like on July 27th?
I mean that's kind of where you're headed. No, I mean if you're going to if you don't want to go the other way, if you're going to extend this thing, you don't want to extend into December because again the weather issues and getting
The other way you can't go is the opposite way.
The other way is at least summer. You get the heat issues, but you would I guess rather have that because you don't have travel issues.
No,
People can travel all they want, just sitting in the, if it's a hot day, then just have to, make sure everybody's got a lot of water and sell. But I mean, at the end of the day, you would be working that angle as starting August 8th or August 11th would be your first game. I'm just using it as an example, but right now it's the 17th. So it would be August 10th. Would be your first game. If you add another week, you add that way, and then to your point, your scrimmages and practice all start earlier. I mean, I saw the kids. I was taking a walk the other morning, or the other day, and I saw the kids out in Poland and working out. Football players were all over there working out. So I'm thinking, well, they were just running drills, no pads or anything. I just thought.
Now, on the flip side, Pat, was starting earlier. You're allowed 10 days during the in the summertime months. 10 days of getting together and doing activities, and a lot of schools are doing their 7-on-7s right now. This late this week and early next week, they're doing their 7-on-7s. I think you're allowed a couple of those.
Right.
So because the mandatory start date in Ohio, you can't make it mandatory until Monday, July 31st.
Okay.
So all these things they're doing now is all quote on a voluntary basis.
Yeah,
you
right.
can't make it mandatory until Monday, the 31st of July.
Yeah, the kids. What I saw out there is I saw the kids running they were just running. They were like doing exercise, running the up and down the field, touch run and that kind of. And they were just out there in their shorts and t-shirts, running drills and stuff. And it was just, I think I said, it's obviously all voluntary, and it's just kind of kids out there working out. So
that mandatory won't come to the end.
But that won't be till July 31st, so we're 2 weeks away from the mandatory or so. So that's just going to start earlier. But if they start this high school season, if they decide they're going to include all those teams in the playoff
in the future,
then they're going to have to start the season earlier, and then that means it's probably going to be starting beginning of August.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, correct.
Yep.
Because I think they want it. They're trying to keep those championship games, like the weekend in the first weekend of December. You know, that correlates with the Big Ten championships game, the SEC championship, the ACC that same weekend, Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
Right.
So you're like looking December 3rd, 4th, and 5th. Or December 4th, 5th, 6th, whenever that may fall on. I think that's one of their major goals if they go down the road. But I think you're getting a lot of resistance from principals and athletic directors and head coaches. They don't like the idea of going to 16 teams, let alone putting everybody in.
Yeah, I know.
And
obviously, it extends the season. Also, you got to take in the fact that you could have kids get hurt with injuries. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yes.
More is not always better.
No, and that's a good point. Now they play 10 games, and right now that would be regular season, but they would have to play 6 regular. Then they get 6 playoff games if they extend it, because right now they're playing 5. Right now they play 5, so they would be 15, and if you go undefeated, you're 15-0. So I guess the question that I have is, like, you have these teams going to ultimately play another game. They're playing 16 games, could be playing 16 games. You're almost getting into the NFL.
Pat, the extended college football playoffs starting in 2024. We're going to put 12 teams in now, correct? And and now the Big Ten announced a couple months ago there's not going to be any divisions anymore starting in 2020. So you could have Ohio State, Michigan play back-to-back weeks.
Yes.
I won't just use Ohio State because people fall around. You beat Michigan and Columbus, then you have to turn around and play them again next week in Indianapolis. You lose that game, okay? You're not the Big Ten champ, okay? Now you're the 5th seed.
Yeah.
So now you have to come back and play the next week again. And now when push comes to shove, you might have to play 17 total games, 12 regular season, the Big Ten championship, plus 4 playoff games. That's 17 total games.
Whoa.
Yeah.
I mean, hypothetical.
Yeah, no, that's right. I mean, you're adding on to the college too.
Yeah,
but
NFL.
It's all and we know that the NFL will get to 18 games.
Yeah.
They're going to get there sooner than later.
Yep.
And they'll just have the 2 exhibition games, and that's it. But that's going to be 18. I still think we talked about it on the show. If they go 18 games, they're going to have to go to 2 bye weeks.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
Which
they'll have to push
basically
the Super Bowl back to the second week of February, not the first.
Yeah, right.
Because I just look at guys, from a college football. Urban Meyer said this. I read an article several years back, and he said, when I was at Utah in 2004, we played 11 regular season games. We won 11 games, and then we beat Pittsburgh in the Fiesta Bowl, and they finished like 3rd or 4th in the country. And we played 12 games, and we were done.
Right.
He said, I'd come to Ohio State. Obviously, they added another regular season game. Remember back in 2005 or 2006, now you play 12 regular season games instead of 11. And then they added the conference championship games everywhere. The SEC started it, but then, as you said, Lucia, all the other conferences got on board because it's a huge moneymaker. And then when they beat Oregon, we won the national title in 2014. He said 10 years later, we went from playing 12 games total to playing 15 games total. 15. We increased our season by almost 30%.
Yep. Yeah.
And he said that's in 1 decade. So where is this headed?
Yeah, you could see where because it's money. It's like, it's always follow the green no matter whatever happens. Follow the green dollar. Where's the green take you?
Yep.
That's basically what it is.
And I realize everything is about making money. It's just the NCAA with college football and college basketball. I'll have friends come into school like in the middle of December and start talking about a college basketball game they watched last night. And I got to be honest, I have zero interest in that. Like, my joke is always call me March 1st when the conference tournament starts and then the NCAA tournament starts, because I just find it hard to, even in the NBA, I find it hard to believe the games in November, December, January affect what happens in March and April. I find that, minus injuries, guys getting hurt and guys available or he's not available. I mean, it's like, I find that hard to believe that something that happens 3 or 4 months ahead of time affects something in basketball. I find that really, really, really hard to believe.
Yeah. No, that's basically what when it comes to in the NBA, it's, they get the load, or I call loaf management, where, these players aren't even playing 70 games. If they play 70 games, that's a lot. 80, are you kidding me? But, I was thinking this the other day, is like, when you go back in time, I know the players are better athletes now than they were back in the 50s and the 60s and the 70s. I get it. However, those players back in the day, those decades, were getting a lot less money, but they played 82 games. They played every game. But yet these are better athletes, but they seem to be hurt all the time, and they don't even play 60, 70 games, if that. But the athletes back in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and even 40s, you throw them in. But when you take those athletes that played in those decades, and what people don't understand, a lot of those athletes worked off season because they needed the money. I mean, you take the 50s and the 60s, those players didn't make a lot of money back then. They had to get jobs. Baseball, football, and basketball players weren't making a lot of money. And I mean, when I'm mistaken, I remember looking at the salary for the New York Jets, the Super Bowl Jets in '68. The players were making $12,000. The linemen.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
And I mean,
you're not wrong.
They had to get jobs. I mean, they couldn't, off season, they had to go get jobs. They had families and, kids to raise, but they needed money. They had to go get jobs. And they played football, but then when football was over, they had to go find a job and make, continue to earn money because they weren't making that much money. And certainly when these poor guys retired, it wasn't like, oh, yeah, okay, I can live off what I mean. No, they had to go find jobs because they weren't making that much money. They couldn't live off what they made.
I was reading some Kenny Smith that was talking. I forgot who he was talking with about it, but like with the load management. Yeah. He said he doesn't believe in always having to do that. But he said the leagues now, in most of the pro sports, they actually own the players. They have, in the collective bargaining agreement, they have to do X, Y, and Z all season long. You got to show up for this engagement. You got to do this. You got to talk to these people. You got to fly over here. You got to do. And if you don't, you are fined big money. Or other things can happen to you. He said he believes sometimes people take load management has nothing to do with their physical. It'd be mental.
Man, he's got a good point.
And they just don't have, just not there to be able to play because of all these other engagements they have to do
off
because
season.
of what they say, even during the season.
During the season.
They got to do all these things that they're obligated, whereas back, he said, when they played, that it wasn't there.
Well, because they didn't, back then, too, there wasn't any TV money. And it was, they played and they were done. The guys played 82 games unless they were really hurt. And Bill Russell flew commercial airline at 6'11", getting in a commercial airline, 2 hours. And they had to take trains to certain, they didn't fly. But I mean, he and Chamberlain and Russell made $100,001, what he made, $1 more than Chamberlain. Russell was the highest paid, and that was like back in 67, 68. So what the other guys weren't making that much money, like Casey Jones and Sam Jones and all the, those guys, they were probably making probably 20,000 maybe.
Okay.
Back then in the 60s, they weren't making oodles of money.
Right.
My friend met Brooks Robinson at a bar. Brooks Robinson talked to my buddy. Brooks Robinson was working as a manufacturer's rep, ran into him at some kind of a thing. And my buddy said he talked to Brooks Robinson, who was maybe the best
third baseman of all time, one of the best. Okay. He said at the most he ever made, I think, was $65,000, and that was in 1974 before he retired. That was his top salary. He was the best. And then I think when in the 70s, he was making like $30,000. That's that's what blows me away. He goes, that's my buddy goes, well, didn't you make enough money to retire? He laughed at him. He goes, no, I had to go find a job. I had a wife and kids. I couldn't sit at home. I said, I had to go find a job and make money. I didn't have enough money to, quote, retire on.
Right.
It's funny because I'm reading a book about Cleveland sports, Dave. Indians, Browns, Cavs, history of Cleveland sports for the last 60 years. And great stories and things you'll remember. And one of the segues is when Andre Rison and the Atlanta Falcons signed with the Cleveland Browns after the 94 season. Art Modell had to go borrow money from 5 different banks to pay him a $5 million signing bonus. Andre Rison signed in Cleveland for 5 years, $17.5 million. And he was the highest paid.
And that was the highest paid
in the NFL at that time.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. Now.
That would be something you'd just be laughing at. That contract right there would be
Yeah,
a guy towards the end of the roster.
That's a minimum wage. Yeah,
Yep.
that's
somebody at the end of the roster.
That's the end of the roster guy. Yeah, that's the end of the roster. But you look at what the NBA free agents just signed for. Kyrie re-signed with Dallas, and he's getting 4 years at, I don't know, was it $40 million a year? I'll look it up. It's crazy.
Yeah.
All right. Hey, that's the music. Hold on. We'll be back after a quick timeout. Pat Lucia, Dave Clark.
Mill Creek Golf Course has been the Valley's leader for golfing fun since 1928. It features 36 challenging holes designed by the legendary Donald Ross and was voted a top 30 municipal facility by Golf Week in 2012. The Mill Creek Golf Shop is a certified Callaway Golf custom fitting center and is stocked with your favorite golf apparel and accessories. Mill Creek Golf Course is now booking tee times for this year's golf season. Please call us at 330-740-7112 or online at millcreekmetroparks.org. Sandrock Concrete specializes in all types of concrete, driveways, sidewalks, basements, and garages. We also do stamped colored concrete in many different designs. We do interior and exterior stonework, regular brick and block work. Sandrock Concrete is fully insured. Call Jerry Sandrock at 330-506-0013 for an estimate. Also find them on Facebook at Sandrock Concrete LLC. Sandrock Concrete, where you deal with the owner all the time.
Driving has a rhythm all its own. Don't wreck it with a text. Before you get behind the wheel, silence your phone. Or better yet, designate a texter. For more text-free driving tips, visit stoptextstoprex.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration.
Hiya, Queen of All Knowledge here, reminding you, creeps out there on the internet hack, scam, and trick savvy cyber users every day. But we can fight back. It's as easy as IC3. If you're a victim of online crime, don't give up. Visit IC3, the FBI's Internet Crime Complaint Center. Your tips help the FBI track down cyber criminals around the world. Report your crime to www.ic3.gov today.
Saturday morning sports page coming right back at you, 330-707-4202. Let's get Irish Mike back. Hey, Irish Mike.
Yes.
Okay, yeah. We were just talking. Kyrie signed a $120 million extension, 3 years. So Kyrie's getting $40 million a year from Dallas for 3 years total. So he's making $120 million guaranteed. I wouldn't give Kyrie any kind of. Kyrie's just, to me, he's always out, always hurt. This problem, that problem, and Kyrie, everything always happens. That and he's not playing. He gets hurt. It's one thing and another. But hey, Mark Cuban likes him, And Mark Cuban.
Dallas bid against themselves.
Yeah, they did. That's what I thought. I thought that was That's what I thought. Because what I read, that nobody really wanted him.
He was never going to Lakers on a big minimum contract to make $5 million a year. That was never going to happen.
Right.
No, they were talking about that, and everybody knows here that Kyrie wasn't going to the Lakers to play for $5 million a year. I know they've told, well, he wants to play with LeBron. No, he doesn't want to.
Not that bad.
Not
he might
right.
want to play, but not for $5 million.
Exactly. He may want to play for LeBron, but not that bad.
Mm-hmm.
He's not giving up $35 million a year when he can get a 3-year, $120 million contract from Dallas. And the Lakers weren't going to pay him that because the Lakers can't pay him that because of their cap situation. So Kyrie's in Dallas. And when, he went to Dallas, they were in the playoff hunt. He got on that team. Now, maybe you could fault that they traded the defense away, the defensive players to get him, and it was a problem with the way the team was constructed. So people are trying to defend it wasn't Kyrie's fault that the team fell out of the playoff hunt. But at the end of the day, it just seems wherever Kyrie goes, he's a great player, but he doesn't seem to elevate the team around him to be a great team. So, again, moving on, but Kyrie's going to be making $40 million a year. We had to get that out there. One of the big contracts. So that's it.
Well, hey, guys, I got to get running with my weekend, but I just want to call and say, are you guys going to be back next weekend?
No, we're out. We're going to be out a couple weeks, and then we're going to try to.
When's the next show then?
Well, we're going to shoot for maybe first weekend in August, maybe, but we see how that
August
goes.
4th. Okay,
Yep.
Look forward to
That's
it. Okay,
going to be
gentlemen,
the
you
plan.
guys have a great weekend. Great
Thanks.
talking to you.
All right.
Great
Thank you.
Irish
Bye-bye,
Mike.
guys.
Good.
Bye-bye.
Anyway, so Dave Clark, we got that out of the way. We covered a lot of stuff today.
Mm-hmm.
I was gonna get to over-unders in the NFL. Look at some of those. I don't know. We could potentially do that next time around.
Yeah, especially if it's in August, we'd be right there. It'd be that first weekend in August. It'd be after the first preseason game.
Right.
I'm thinking, yeah. I think the first one is August 4th.
Right.
The Jets and the Browns.
Jets and Browns. That's the Hall of Fame.
And then August 6th will be that show there. So we'll know they'll be in the swing of things because that'll be the first full weekend of football.
Yeah, that'll be it. I mean, we're going to be creeping up on the high school football. Is only a couple weeks from that. I mean, it's just amazing how this summer is. I just saw the other day, drove by the Poland's. It's like now 37 days from school starting. Wow. Yeah, I saw the sign there. It has a sign when you.
Probably is that.
What's and they said today's the 15th, and it said. Yeah. This was 2 days ago. It said 39 days from school starting. And I thought, 39? They go, what? Didn't they weren't these kids just out a couple of weeks ago? Like, didn't they just get out?
Yep.
And now it's like, oh, they're going to be starting school in 30 days. I go,
yeah. Or the summers are shortened.
Yeah, the summers are compressed.
Yeah, I work in schools. I'll tell you, I'm like, a blink of an eye.
Yeah.
And they're right back. And I did the summer school stuff. We got one more week of that. But then when I get back, we only 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks.
2.5 weeks to start. Right.
Yep. Oh.
And I think, it seems like the school, everybody's starting in August now. Mm-hmm. And then obviously now football, they're just moving it. And if they do what Irish Mike said they're doing, is he potentially looking at adding another week to the high school football season to get everybody in the playoffs.
Yeah,
they're going to be they can't move it really further into December. They'll move it back into the summer.
Yeah, and that's just
I mean, I still can't get over the fact that high school football starts August 17th, and basically today's the 15th of July. We're a month and change away from the season starting. It blows my mind because I always equate high school football with the start of fall, but we're really not because you still got a few. Yeah, it seems like September's are warmer now.
Still got another month of summer.
You still really have another month of summer. You do.
Yeah.
You really do with that. So that's crazy. but we'll see how that pans itself out. Like I said, we covered the Gruden thing with the NFL. That is just gonna, the Nevada Supreme Court. The only thing is, it seems like the NFL is Teflon because it doesn't really matter what goes on because people are still. And what I will tell you is, whatever comes of those emails in the NFL, the 650,000, it won't matter because people are going to go to those games anyway. See, what the difference between NFL and the other sports is, like, you see basketball regular season, is people don't get into it. College college basketball is pretty much the tournament, but pro football, college football, people love the regular season, especially the NFL. The NFL is on an island to itself.
Right.
College is close, but not on the level of the NFL for as far as watchability and what people, interest. NFL is still the top.
Yeah.
Top of the list as far as interest. It doesn't really matter if they have some negative publicity that comes from those Gruden emails. Somebody's not going to go, I'm giving up my season tickets because found out some player coach or a coach or somebody, put a bad email together. Might have been a racist email. It might have been a totally inappropriate email, but that's not going to affect the fan going to the game.
Yep. I agree.
It won't matter.
They're going to be there. Their stands will be filled.
Right. It doesn't matter. And people are watching it on TV. Like, it's not going to say, I'm not watching this game because of some email that I found out about, what happened in the organization.
Yeah. Oh, shock. There's a racist.
Right.
It's part of life. It's what it is.
It is what it is.
To be honest, that's just what it is.
Right.
In these days, I mean,
it's sad, and you would sometimes think that as a country we've moved past it. But what bothers me probably more is when you see it. It bothers me because it feels like we have not, and that's very discouraging.
Yep.
Because I remember Hank Aaron when he was going to break Ruth's record, all the disgusting emails and hatred and letters. It wasn't emails back in 74, it was letters. And all the hate mail and the disgusting letters that poor man received because he was going to break Ruth's record.
Right.
And that's you would think that was in 74, which is now 47 years ago, but you would think that was then, but then you see stuff like this occurring with Gruden and his emails, racist emails, et cetera. And you're thinking, have people like that, have they grown? Don't they? No. Yeah. And that's the discouraging part, is it's still there. And
you're going to be naive to think that.
Right. And you're right. Yeah. You're naive to think that people have grown. And then you see this, and Gruden is a great football mind and a coach. I'll give him that. I don't know if he's great. He's a good football coach record wise. And he's, Monday Night Football. I was never a real fan of him on Monday night. He to me, never shut up. I don't need to hear all that crap.
Right.
I like to watch the game. I go back to when it was Meredith and Gifford and Cosell. They were entertaining, but they didn't talk you to death. Right. But the whole point is, bottom line is, when you get back to, the Gruden emails, he deserved to be fired. I have no problem with him getting fired for that. From a point is, those emails, if that came out and those emails are very, horrible, then yeah. Now, the only question comes down to, though, is who else is of the 650,000?
That's a lot.
That's a lot of emails. And who else is this? How much of a umbrella does that entail? And then who else is involved? And do they write? We would be naive to think he's not the only person to write those emails of that disgusting nature.
Right.
But are there other people out there that wrote disgusting emails that are still working?
Yeah, well, just little tidbits from Snyder will tell you there's a lot more.
Right.
And he's even said some things, didn't say a name, but I know he had to be referring to Jerry Jones.
Oh, yeah.
As shaking in your boots if I let them know what I know.
Right.
And the things that he's saying that is directed at the Cowboys.
Sure, it
Jerry
is.
Jones, and he knows knows that Snyder could take him really under if he had to.
And therein lies your other problem. Is what I see with all this is when you could talk about all those, who else writing those emails? And if you look at the disgusting things that Dan Snyder did when he was the owner of Washington, I mean, you think that, I hate to say this, but you think he's the only one.
No.
And that's the problem is, yeah, he's the one we know of.
Yeah, you think those guys, like you said, with all the money, don't sit and say, hey, you know what I did?
Right.
We did this over here. What? And then we're going to try. I believe those type of discussions go
Right.
on.
I don't doubt it. I mean,
they want, all of them want to one up each other. If you did this, well, I'm going to do something a little bit more in that, maybe in that subject or whatever it is, to show you I can go further than you went. They're in competition even in that way.
Sure, they are.
So it's terrible.
It is. And I mean, you think of this through, and that's the part that,
Yep.
I read a book. It's a very old, it was a dated book. It was Bill Russell, Go Up for Glory. And it was written back in 1966. But it was a very, very good book. But he really details like what he dealt with, the racism, but you couldn't eat at you couldn't stay at the hotel, you couldn't eat at the restaurants, back in the South, and detailing everything. It was just it's an old book. It's how many years? 50 some odd years old, 57 years it was written. And it was written in 66, but it was a very eye-opening book of what he dealt with back then.
Right.
And his, reactions to all that. But it just goes to, so sometimes I think that was then, but then you start seeing crap with Gruden and emails and other people and racist emails that can't even believe he's that stupid enough to put that in an email to start. He deserved, again, for the record, he deserved to get fired.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, the whole thing, to make this clear, at least in my eyes, what he did was something he should be fired for. The question then comes down to, though, is with those emails, and that's where he wants to go, okay, you fired me. There's a lot of other people out there that I want to take down with me, because if you could fire me, you should be firing those people, whoever they are, in the 650,000 emails.
Yep. And that might be mainly the entire NFL.
Well, and therein lies your other problem is what he could expose those emails could really, and that's why the NFL doesn't want these emails out.
It could be some major damage.
Because you could be creating a lot of major damage from an aspect of, then you have to start looking at other potential coaches, assistant coaches, GMs out there, et cetera, that have maybe were writing emails of that nature to other GMs and other coaches, et cetera. Yeah. And then Gruden's saying, okay, you can fire me. I want to take a bunch of those guys with me.
Yep. We're going to see what happens. Something tells me some kind of way it's going to get blocked, and we're not going to ever hear about
That's going to be the point.
That's
the whole point on it is this. That Nevada Supreme Court, if they rule that it's not arbitration, that it can, proceed as where Gruden wants to take it, then the NFL has to either go that way and release those emails or go to the Supreme Court. But if the Supreme Court rules in favor of Gruden and says, no, that's not an arbitration case,
you got to do it.
Then the NFL is going to have to release those emails.
And they're going to be screwed.
And that's where it's going to get interesting to see those, because they have been fighting. They don't want those emails out.
Yeah, well, no, it's going to tarnish, as we say,
but you see, herein lies the question I have for you. This is the problem I have. Is if he knows there's a problem, like Goodell, if he knows those emails are a problem, isn't he in essence covering it up?
Yeah. Well, yeah, it will happen. If he knows it,
He knows what's in those emails. He doesn't want those emails out. So he's basically covering it up.
Yeah.
So he's just as bad as.
Well, he's doing his job. He's trying to protect those owners. But he's still just as bad, if not worse, because just from your own, I'll just say, forget all the money you're paying me.
No.
I'm not doing this. I'm not a part of this mess.
The point is, the point on it though is this: is he's covering up bad behavior, and he's not taking any action against those bad emails.
I agree.
Now he wanted Gruden out, but he might have cut off his nose to spite the face because he only released those emails. They deny that he didn't do it, but the reality is, I think we all believe he did. But the bottom line is, someone released those emails out to get rid of John Gruden. But if Goodell knows those emails are bad and he's not taking any action against the people that wrote the emails, he's really part of the problem.
Yeah. Well,
because he's covering it up.
Yeah. Well,
and if you have emails, racist emails, misogynist emails, that behavior is going on with the people, whoever's in those emails, and you don't do anything about it, you're just as bad.
Well, that's what I'm saying. He done made a lot of money. So if it was me, and I found I done made a lot of money, I would just say, for my own well-being, I'm not covering anything up. Whatever you need to see, go see. But he's telling them not to show those. That means he must know what's on there. So I don't think you do all that for the owners. I couldn't do that. I couldn't. For my own self-worth, I couldn't do it. But he doesn't care.
No, because he's getting because he's getting oodles of.
I wouldn't do it, because in the long run, if that goes to court, he's going down. All of them.
This is where I have a problem with hypocrisy here. He's the one. Roger Goodell's putting "Stop Racism" in the end zones. Okay, good. But you basically know these emails are bad and you're not doing anything about it.
Mm-hmm.
So basically you're telling us, hey, you better stop racism. No, Roger, you better do something about those racism in the emails and the misogynistic and whatever else is in those emails. You need to do something about it. You're telling us to stop racism at the end zones. Okay, fine. I get it. However, you're not doing anything about racism in those emails.
And I heard somebody talking about it's possible that, do he know exactly what's in them? He may not, but he knows that they're bad. He knows that they're deplorable for the NFL to go down. So I just wouldn't be a part of that. If I'm him, I'm not going to be a part of that.
But if Roger Goodell wants to be a really good commissioner and make a headway as far as racism and misogynistic email, etc., doesn't he have to start with going after the people that wrote? If they wrote those type of emails, needs to do something and get rid of them. He got rid of Gruden. Then why stop at John Gruden? Why stop and say, okay, I'm gonna make sure we get rid of John Gruden here.
Mm-hmm.
No, we're gonna, let's go after the people in those other emails.
And then again, he may do that if we got to see which way this court thing goes.
But shouldn't he be doing it anyway? Like this is the part that always gets me, is you got to wait for a court to do. Why don't you do the right thing and go after the people that wrote? You did it. You got rid of John Gruden over it. Okay.
Yeah.
And I've got no problem with them firing John Gruden.
Yeah.
When I read read the one email that he wrote, he should be.
Yeah. I'm just looking at, let's say I'm going to take him out the equation that he's the one to release him. Let's say somebody else did really release him that we don't know who did that.
Yeah, okay. I'll give you that. Okay, so maybe it wasn't.
Yeah,
okay.
he goes after him.
Even though Van Natta thinks otherwise, but for the sake of the discussion,
that's just a thought of him saying that.
That's true.
And it do make you feel that way because of them having their problems, but that may not be the truth.
And that's true. Okay, I'll give you that.
I would say, if John Gruden is saying these things and he wants to go to court, I would do some background investigation in it. My own.
You should.
I wouldn't. Now, this is the thing. I wouldn't do it publicly because I don't want to deplore the NFL, but I would do some investigating on our own.
Right.
Find out what's going on.
Right.
And then all of a sudden you might have major fines, draft picks taken away, guys out
Fired.
of jobs, all that kind of thing. They be wondering what's going on, but he don't have to say what it is. He could just say due to different things,
Whatever.
that was deplorable towards the NFL.
Yeah.
That puts a black mark, can put a black mark. We have to get rid of these individuals.
Right.
Fire them, and you may even that team might have to suffer lost draft picks, money, paying stuff, whatever. Now, would the owners hate him? Probably so. Probably get him fired real quick.
Right.
But he would save face for himself. And would it happen? With that type of attitude, he'll be picked up for something to either commit, whatever it is.
Right.
Making big money anyway because of that.
He's got enough.
He's
right.
he's got enough anyway. But he'll get another.
Anyway. Right.
He'll get another employment so quick.
But don't you
That's what I would
think
do.
he would want to, and you bring up what you bring up is very valid and true, is in the end of the day, his main goal is to protect his owners, NFL owners. That's his number one job description, no matter what. That's number one. So he will do whatever he needs to do to protect them. And if that means covering up emails, so be it.
Yeah, I wouldn't do that. What I would say is I would stay where I'm not going after him while John Gruden's trying to get that. But once that thing hits the court,
right,
then I'm going to be all behind whatever the court says.
Right.
Check it. And if these guys are something, they're out.
So he's going to react. He's not proactive. See, what he's doing is he won't be proactive with this. To your point,
but I believe he knows. Even if he doesn't know all of it, he knows some other people.
Let's face it.
He done said it though. Like with Snyder, he done had some little run-ins with not Jimmy Johnson, but Jerry Jones.
Right.
He's done had run-ins with a couple different owners about things. So he knows some things going on.
Oh no.
He may not know how widespread, but he's gonna know once that stuff come out in detail. There's no way I think he's seen all those emails and know every single thing, but I'm sure he knows something within that organization's going on.
Well, let's get real. I mean, he has people to investigate all those emails.
Yeah, he could definitely do that.
So he could
and get a feedback.
He can bring in so many investigators to look at those emails and get back to him with, okay, I reviewed
and this looks
so
bad.
many emails. I reviewed 20,000. This is the tone of the 20. Here are 10 emails you need to look at. Another guy comes in. I looked at so many emails. Here's 10 more. You really need to look at this. And they could bring it up by person who sent it. Then you could start saying, okay, these are the emails you really need to look at by these particular individuals, or these emails are totally inappropriate. Here they are. And this is who sent these inappropriate emails. So it can be done. He definitely has the ability to do it as far as resources goes. And he can do all that.
Yeah, he can do it.
So I know there's 650,000 of them out there. And I know that seems like a lot. And there it is.
But he's not going to do them all. Not one person going to do it.
He has resources to take to have, and he could hire an investigative firm. That's what he can do. That is bring in an investigative firm to say, okay, I'm high, and you have the resources to go through these and then get back to me with a list of inappropriate, by individuals and the degree, and then I can review some of the emails. No, he's got all of the resources that can do it.
But you know what? What you just brought up, who's to say he hasn't done that? And that might be the reason he don't want it to be known that this is all out there on my watch.
And that could be
my watch, and this is what these guys are doing.
And that's the other thing. You could be correct, Dave Clark, in that he's done this.
Yep. And see it, and I don't want this out there.
And knows that
it's on my watch.
Right. That this has gone on. Right.
And I go with the same thing. It's still going to come after him with that, but he can't control all those owners. Not the big.
And the problem is
works for him.
We don't know on those emails. Maybe there's owners involved on those inappropriate emails too. That basically.
Well, that's what I think he sees.
That's what he sees.
And that's going to look really big. Not coaches.
It could be owners.
I think I do believe
it's
that's
not the weight. It's not the strength coach.
No,
it's the owner of a team.
That's
that,
why.
You know,
why would I mean that kind of stuff can happen through coaches and scouts
Right.
or something.
Right.
But owners is going to be devastated.
Right.
Because he works for the owners. So that's devastating to him.
That's why the owners are very hesitant about getting rid of Dan. See, the owners don't want to vote an owner out because it's the old saying, you live in a glass house, don't throw stones.
Right.
And all these owners, I think not all of them, some of the owners probably have glass houses, a lot more glass in their house, and they know that, hey, if I want to get rid of Snyder, I may not be, far behind.
Right.
I could go with him because they start looking into some of my emails and some of the stuff I did.
Mm-hmm. That's what I think. I do think he knows there's some owner stuff in there. It's not no coaches, it's some owners.
Saturday morning sports page. Pat Lucia, Dave Clark. Everybody have a safe week. And do not drink and do not drive and buckle up. Western Reserve Radio, Pat Lucia, Dave Clark.
Hi, it's Mark Means, host of By All Means, Tuesdays at 5, right here on Western Reserve Radio, WRDB, The Scourge.
Hamilton was adopted from a rescue in 2008. He really likes to be around people. I get out my mat and I'm doing a downward dog and he's underneath. He's quite the pug about town. He gets invited to a lot of parties. He knows he's a pretty big deal. Look at this little face. How could you not love him?
Hamilton the Pug, Instagram star and shelter pet. Amazing adoption stories start in shelters. Visit theshelterpetproject.org to find a pet near you. Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
You make sure his toys don't have any sharp edges. You taught her what to do when the smoke alarm goes off. You do so much to keep your child safe. But are you using the right car seat for your child? Car crashes are a leading killer of children ages 1 to 13. Protect your child's future at every stage of life. For information on the right seat for your child, visit safercar.gov/the-right-seat.
A message from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council. So you see, son, good manners are important. Should I go through it again?
Yes.
Yes, please.
Yes, please.
Exactly. Always say please, thank you, you're welcome, and excuse me. Sit up straight, hold doors open, don't speak with your mouth full, keep your elbows off the table. Share your things, play nice, and generally treat others the way you'd like to be treated. Got it?
Got it.
And stop picking your nose.
Most parenting is hard to do in just 2 minutes. But 2 minutes twice a day making sure they brush their teeth is easier, and it could help save them from a lifetime of tooth pain. Visit 2min2x.org to find out more. A message from the Partnership for Healthy Mouths, Healthy Lives, and the Ad Council.
I'm a retired school psychologist, and helping people was my thing. After my stroke, when Meals on Wheels started, I was on the other end of the stick, so to speak. My name is Julius Gaines, creative writer, poet, photographer.
1 in 6 seniors faces the threat of hunger, and millions more live in isolation. Drop off a hot meal and say a quick hello. Volunteer for Meals on Wheels by donating your lunch break at americaletsdolunch.org. This message brought to you by Meals on Wheels America and the Ad Council.
Welcome to Calvin's Barbershop.
You all gotta see this.
I don't even want to know what you're looking at on that phone.
Well, you should. I was learning about the dangers of high blood pressure and that we need to get ours checked regularly. High blood pressure can increase the risk of heart attack or stroke, but this text program can help keep it at a healthy range. Just text Barbershop to 97779 to sign up.
I'll get right on it as soon as I'm done with this baby panda video.
Text Barbershop to 97779. A message from the American Heart Association and the Ad Council.
During the fall and winter, grilling season never ends, and Gessler Propane is your local supplier that makes sure you get your hard-earned money's worth. Why go to gas exchanges to pay higher prices for tanks not filled to capacity? Gessler Propane makes sure you're prepared for year-round grilling with 100% filled tanks at a reasonable cost. See Bob Monday through Friday, 10 to 4, and Saturday, 9 to 3 at Gessler Propane, 702 Youngstown Poland Road, Struthers, or call 330-755-9119. Gessler Propane. They got gas.
People been saying to your friend, get a different face, and posting on their feed, they're super ugly. The things they say to them on not true. So tell your friend I'll stand up for you. Don't worry, I know what to do.
Know someone being bullied online? You can be a witness and make a difference by letting the world know it isn't cool and by letting your friend know you care. Learn more at eyewitnessbullying.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Keyboard Cat, Hamilton the Pug, and Toast Meets World. These are some of the internet's most beloved